this. Alright, let's look at this. I don't think that something can technically be objectively bad since there are different objective standards for things and what you choose for the standard will ultimately be decided by subjectivity. Okay. To talk to that point, with DS2, say, right? A weapon's hitbox by like design is meant to be the size of the weapon, right? So like if you have an axe, the hitbox or the hurtbox or whatever, the part that's meant to be causing damage is meant to be by design of the hitbox by the uh uh what's the word I'm looking for? By its purpose. The purpose of the hitbox is to be as close as a representative. Oh, is it an ad? Can I snooze? I can, right? How do I snooze? It's got to be here. There we go. Snooze ads. Can I snooze it while it's going? Yes. Perfect. Still ad? In 1 minute, dude? Yeah, I see it. Okay. Mike can hear me because he's subbed. Sorry. Pardon me. How come there's no chat box coming up on this screen? Oh, there it is. Sorry, it's just small. Alright, so the purpose of a hitbox. That's cool, thanks for letting me know. It says the ad is in progress for 46 seconds. I don't understand. Anyway, the purpose of a hitbox is to demonstrate to the player that the edge of a weapon is at point 0.5, right? For a sword, at point 0.3 for an axe, at point 0.10 for a spear, because it's longer, right? Dark Souls 2 fails to have its hitboxes in this particular instance, in this one particular instance of its game design, it fails to have the purposes of its hitboxes be accurate visual representations of what they're supposed to do regarding their purpose. And the purpose is to show if an enemy swings a sword and the blade visually on screen passes through your character's body or hurt box or whatever you want to call it without any iframes being active, that would cause damage. That should cause damage for the purposes of the hurt box and the hitbox to be functioning correctly. Dark Souls 2 has moments, consistent moments, where that doesn't happen. In a game like Dark Souls, as Dark Side Phil would say, Dark Souls. Didn't say Dark Souls, it says Dark Souls. In a game like Dark Souls, where the hitboxes and the hurt boxes are integral to the gameplay, right? To know that a weapon is or is not going to hit you, or to know that your weapon is or is not going to hit the enemy, is one of the top 5 things the game has to get right more often than not, if not top 3. How do you resolve problems in Dark Souls? You kill enemies, kill bosses. I'm going to say the hit boxes and hurt boxes in Dark Souls are a top 3 priority, as in they have to be good, better than anything else on a list of 1 to 100 mechanics and features and design philosophies of Dark Souls. The hitboxes and the hurt boxes in Dark Souls have to be a top 3 priority to be perfect. And by perfect, I mean they need to be correct. So, where you have a sword, if it looks like it's passing through your character's body and you don't have iframes active, you should take damage. And if your sword passes through an enemy's body and hurt box with your hitbox, and they don't have iframes, they should take damage. Dark Souls 2 fails in that regard. And because it fails in that regard, let's just use this one example. Because it fails in that regard, which I'm saying personally to me, hurt boxes and hit boxes are a top 3 priority feature, top 3 priority mechanic, top 3 um, component of Dark Souls. To not have that working as intended, to not have that working as its purpose should be, is a monumental failure that significantly and drastically um, negatively affects my enjoyment of the game, but also going back to this idea of objectivity, objectively what the game itself is about. Because the game, the way you engage with Dark Souls on a gameplay, moment to moment basis is hitboxes and hurtboxes in terms of its combat. You can't talk your way out of problems. You can't roll dice for a charisma check. You can run through enemies, but eventually you're going to have to swing a weapon, or throw a firebomb, or throw a knife, or use a bow, for example, to kill bosses. Right? You have to eventually kill bosses, and because Dark Souls 2 fails there, I think objectively that makes it a bad game, and that makes it a bad Dark Souls game. Because as its mission statement, as its like core design philosophy, as it's based around solving problems in the game in terms of like how do you get past a boss? You kill the boss. I guess you can have the boss kill itself, like with Taurus jumping off. Then you don't have to worry about. Well, actually, you do. If the Taurus's hitboxes or hurtboxes don't collide properly with the kill box of the ground, he will just fall through the earth, not die, and you can't kill him. That's why I think Dark Souls 2 is a bad game, and that's why I think Dark Souls 2 is a bad Dark Souls game, objectively speaking. Because at its core, at its essence, its mission statement, its goal is not being fulfilled for whatever reason, right? Time constraints, poor craftsmanship, rush jobs, low priorities on the list of things they wanted to have. So that's what I have to say about it. Welcome, Miles. How you doing, fella? Um, I'm I'm super keen to talk more about it, but that's my position, and I'm parroting a lot of what Maul is saying, but also my understanding of like of art, my feelings towards art, not just product, but art. And I'm super keen to hear what people think about whether games can be objectively good or objectively bad, because that's my take on it. YouTube. Oh wait, no, just YouTube. Excuse me. Honest is like, what did I just walk into? All right. Yeah. This is what I wanted to show you yesterday, and I forgot. I was talking about this clip about the guy pretending to be the Joker. Very good. Very good. All right, let me go to the scene window. Let me capture a window. Google Chrome. This one. 15 years ago. Oh my God, 15 years ago. That's insane. Window capture, please. Great. Can you see that? Terrific. Ready? I hope this is the thumbnail. I hope I hope YouTube, when I put the VODs up, takes this as the thumbnail. Ready? I'm not going to talk so you can listen to it.
Dude, your room is a mess.
I know.
What the hell's wrong with you, man? What are you doing?
What is Making a video.
You making a video?
Yeah.
Why you paint your face, bro?
Because I'm being the Joker.
Why you being the Joker, dude?
Dude, because the Joker's awesome. Get off it.
Dude, but you ain't even close to looking like him, dude. You gotta be white in the face, bro.
Of course not. I didn't want to put the white stuff on and have to wait half an hour for it to dry before I put the
You
black
like the
and
Joker?
on. Yeah, he's awesome. Lois,
Because he likes it. He's pretty
of
cool.
course he likes the Joker.
Like the Joker. Bitch.
The Joker's messed
Bitch.
up.
You
I
little
saw it
bitch.
when he
Like
was
the
last
Joker,
night.
bitch.
Can you laugh like the Joker?
No, I don't. That's scary.
Dude, I wanna hear it.
Don't laugh.
Dude,
like
dude,
me.
dude.
Don't.
That's pretty good.
Oh man.
You gonna be an actor someday?
No, probably not. It's just the thing I have for the Joker. That's it.
I'm
All
gonna
right,
go eat.
this candy cane play video game.
Alright, fine.
phone.
God, I wish that were me. Oh God, I wish that were me. That's so Krang pilled and dangle coded. I don't think you're wrong. In fact, I think your objective standard is a very good standard. But let's say that I like DS2 for its other elements, say fashion, souls, or weapon variety. What would make your standard more valid than mine? Even though more people would probably agree that yours is better, that decision that hitboxes are more important than fashion souls would have a subjective baseline, even though more people would agree with it. In that sense, oh, fucking hell, why is it? Why is the my? Sorry, I'm noticing my mic is like the gain isn't even up, and it's in the red. It's really annoying me. Now it's further away. Sorry, it's so sensitive. I don't know if it's the EQ or. What about now? It's always a A. A sounds. A sounds. A. Krangle face reveal. I'd rather Krangle asshole reveal. Mods, wake up and pin that. All right. My point regarding fashion. So I think Dark Souls has great fashion souls because like the. Did I put music on in the background? No, fuck it. I'm not Hassan. Um, I think Dark Souls has really good. It has a bigger variety of, yeah, like pretty good looking sets. And this, what's important to me about Dark Souls 2's fashion is that there's a lot more variety. Like the sets work with each other, so you can mix and match a lot more. That's cool. However, coming back to how you actually play the game, like how do you actually get through Dark Souls 2 on a scale of say 1 to 10? Combat is 2. Literally moving your character would be 1. I don't think any, apart from the butterfly set, which can poison things, I don't think any set can um, kill a boss for you. I'm not sure though. And then you'd have to go into, well, then you're going to wear the butterfly set for every boss encounter until they get poisoned and die. I don't think that your opinion, I don't think that your opinion or your standard is any less valid than mine until I take into consideration, or until we take into consideration, the aims of what Dark Souls 2 is trying to achieve. If Dark Souls 2 was a fashion simulator and not a character action game, the clothes would be more important, right? If it was a dress up your character game, if it was like a I don't know, any other game that has customizable elements in terms of clothing that has an impact on gameplay that much. Like if it were a dating sim where your gameplay would be affected by the clothes you choose, I think then that obviously combat would not be as high a priority, and the standard at which the combat would need to be good would be lowered and not make that much of an issue for the game's mission statement or the game's design goals if it were a fashion sim. Then you'd have to have really cool outfits. You'd have to have high quality textures for the clothes so they look good, because that's the element of the game that you're interacting with the most. If it were, say, a fashion sim, I can't think of, or a dating sim, I can't think of any other games that have clothing as such an integral component of the gameplay. However, Dark Souls 2 isn't that. Dark Souls 2 is a character action game by design. Like the the developers started by going, we're making a third person character action game. That was their goal. That's the headline of the game. A top two priority of a character action game is hitboxes, hurtboxes, iframes, to like not use jargon terms, to see the game and have the game show you accurate action in terms of getting hit by a weapon or hitting others with a weapon. And because it fails there, that standard, it's not that it's more or less valid than yours, it's just in the context of what Dark Souls 2 is built as being by design. Like the purpose of Dark Souls 2's gameplay is to function as a character action game. And because in one instance, like one example of its faults or flaws is regarding the hitboxes or around the hurt boxes or around weapons passing through enemies that should hit enemies, or your health being taken away and getting hit by things you shouldn't be getting hit by. That's why uh, that standard regarding that game's design philosophy, that game's mission statement, is more important. It's not that it's more valid. I want to say that it's more important. But if you want to use the word valid, then I'll say it is more valid only in the context of the game. You might enjoy Dark Souls for like the level design. You might enjoy Dark Souls for the different worlds, and you might enjoy Dark Souls for the story. That doesn't mean I'm not going to say you can't enjoy Dark Souls for the story. I'm not going to say you're dumb for liking the dialogue. I'm not going to say you can't um, play Dark Souls, or you can't play Dark Souls 2 instead of Dark Souls 1. I will say I think I think on a fundamental level regarding the game's purpose, Dark Souls 2 is a failure. Basically, the point I'm trying to make is that in terms of whether the game is good or bad, you can use a variety of standards, aesthetics, combat, lore, etc. How do you accurately decide which standards are more valid than others? Ultimately, you'd have to use a subjective standard to design that. That's essentially what I'm saying. I agree with you to an extent that you would then say, how do you accurately decide which standards are more valid than others? My answer to that, and the answer that I think cuts the rest of the part off regarding objectivity and subjectivity, is the design, the purpose, the aim of the developers in their creation of the game. Like, what's an example? If I made an RPG where the game miscalculated damage, mathematically speaking, but you could build the most incredible settlements as towns and castles and islands, because it's an RPG and the way that you interact with the game is through the mathematical numbers of I hit you for 100 points of damage with this attack every single time, give or take debuffs or random dice rolls, those kinds of things. If the game is saying 50 plus 50 is 100 once, and then the game says 50 plus 50 is 102 second time, the game is at its core fundamentally broken. It's not reaching what its design philosophy, it's not expressing its purpose correctly, and because of that, it's bad. And I also want to make it clear that I don't disagree with you. No, I'm just saying, I'm not like arguing. I think this is, to me, this is interesting. To anybody watching, it's probably just really boring because it's somebody talking about stuff that they might not be interested in. Because I'm not just chatting, I'm Dark Soulsing. But the the only thing that I think we can attribute to universal objectivity is the intention of the creator regarding the creation. So, like, I don't think art can just be anything. There's a level of craftsmanship for any piece of art that has to exist to some degree for me to consider it good. Right? I think Silent Hill 2 is an artistic masterpiece because what I think it does is it sets out to do something, it does it, it executes that goal, and the cherry on top, the icing on the cake, is that because of its artistry and craftsmanship and the skill of those involved in its creation, the meaning of which you can pull from the game's themes or the beats of its story are like tenfold. If Silent Hill 2 could only be, interpreted as it's a story about a guy who is tricked by an evil town to go there because he thinks he's going to see his dead wife. I mean, the game could still be a masterpiece, but it wouldn't be as good as I think personally. It wouldn't be as good as the subtlety, the subtlety of its storytelling. But that's a subjective measure that I am attributing to the game. I would say, subjectively speaking, Silent Hill 2 can be interpreted as this, or this, or this, or this. Right? Dark Souls' story can be interpreted as this, as this, as this, as this. Or this lore, or this character's backstory can be, interpreted this many ways. But if I move my controller forwards slightly and James walks once, if I move my controller in that same way a second time and James runs, and the only way you can actually interact with the game world of Silent Hill 2 is through its movement, that game is broken at some level. It's mechanics that it needs the mechanics to convey its story. It needs its mechanics to function correctly to get you invested in the game world. If its mechanics don't work, you realize you're playing a game, basically, right? That's probably my problem with Dark Souls 2. When Dark Souls 2 is shit at being a character action game, that's when I start to feel like I am playing a video game. And we won't get into like the difficulty or the copy pasted enemies or whatever. When Dark Souls 2 doesn't work as it should as a game, it pulls me out of the experience. Whereas when I play Dark Souls 1, I feel way more invested in the experience because on a mechanical level, like on a mechanical level of the game, it's working. If I'm close enough to this enemy, if I'm at X1 and the enemy's at Y1 and I hit it with my sword, my long sword, that long sword's always gonna hit. If I'm at X1 and the enemy's at Y1 and I'm exactly in the same spot as last time when I swung my weapon and it hit the enemy, but this time it doesn't hit the enemy, I'm immediately pulled out of the game. Even if it's a little bit. I'm immediately put out of the game because as a game of Dark Souls, people say it's like it's harsh but fair. Sure, let's take that tagline and go harsh but fair. In that instance, the game is being unfair. It could be a glitch. It could be a I don't know an issue with like something where the game's not working the way that it should be. But it's a one-off, right? It's a bug. It's a glitch. That's why Bethesda games are fucking garbage because they have such poor craftsmanship. In my opinion, is that Bethesda games are such fucking garbage because their craftsmanship is poor on a mechanical level. Not about writing, not about story, not about the features of the game and what you can and can't do, but me shooting a dude in the head with a gun and his head exploding because of a crit. Yeah, kind of love when games have that bit of jankiness though. Again, what do you consider jank? Dark Souls 2 has, objectively speaking, a better rolling system in terms of 360-degree movement than Dark Souls 1 does. Dark Souls 1, you roll in the 1, 2, 3, 4 cardinal directions: forwards, backwards, left, and right. It doesn't have any of any other rolling directions. So a lot of people when they play Dark Souls, they talk about Dark Souls, they're like, "Yeah, I really like it. It's a great game, but it's so dated. It's so old. It's so jank. I forgot how jank it was." And objectively speaking, if I'm pretty sure Dark Souls 3 has the same rolling as DS2, I'm not sure. But objectively speaking, if the character action game, yeah, DS2 does use snap points. It uses the fucking the shittiest possible system it could, but yeah, it does use snap points. It, you know, regarding DS2's movement, you don't feel fully in control of the character. I don't. I don't feel full control of the character. But objectively speaking, the rolling system, let's do it just the rolling system, in the cardinal directions, all of the directions, 360 rolling, that would be objectively better than Dark Souls 1. However, Dark Souls 1 is coded. Its enemy encounters, right? Its bosses are coded with the fact that it has only 4 points in which to roll. Because if it didn't, if Dark Souls 2 was programmed in the way that if Dark Souls 1 was programmed in the way that Dark Souls 2 was, regarding its enemy attacks and its boss attacks and whatever, anything to do with the enemy's actions towards you, and they were working on a 360 rolling system, but you weren't, then that would be an incredible flaw of the game design. Because the abilities afforded to the enemies and the way that they interact with your side of the world is not the same, to an extent, as the one that you interact with their side of the world. Because you would have, thanks for the reminder, I need water. I already had water, it's fine. They use 360 degrees. You use four cardinal directions. That would be bad. That would be shit. That would be objectively worse. Right? But then I ask you this: what would make the 360 control objectively better than the snap points? Perhaps you could argue that it adds to the challenge of the. Yeah, I agree. You could argue that it adds to the challenge of the game, and I think the same argument you would make to, well, yeah, it has snap points. That just makes the game harder, though. Could be, yeah, there are 10 enemies in this room. It makes the game harder. Yeah, you have to level up your iframes through a stat. It makes the game harder. I agree. It would add to the challenge, but I don't think that in terms of the way you interact with the world would be better. In a character action game, if you move to the 71st degree of your left analog stick, you, by design, would need your character to be as responsive as possible to also move to the 70 whatever I said degree of the left stick. If it didn't, if you push it on the 73rd degree and the character goes to the 69th degree, maybe it's not bad enough to feel like you don't have complete control, but it might be enough if it was like 67 degrees, 65 degrees regarding snap points. So, objectively speaking, I think Dark Souls 2 has a better rolling system regarding the 360 control. That means rolling anywhere you want to go than Dark Souls 1 does. But that 360 degree control is not afforded to the player unless it is to do with rolling in Dark Souls 2. That, because of its game design, because of its purpose, because of it being a character action game where if you move slightly to the left at 15 degrees, you would expect, you would need the visual avatar on your screen to also move to whatever the degrees I said were on the left. Because every bit of distance that you have between those two is you getting distance from the game. So lag, right? Lag is objectively bad. Someone could say, yeah, but lag is like having to think in chess terms, thinking 2, 3, 4 moves ahead. You know, it adds to the difficulty. It adds to the challenge of the game. So then when you overcome the challenge with the lag there, you would feel more rewarded. I would say no, because the lag is a mechanical failure of the game. The game is meant to react to your um, directions and inputs in as close to real time as possible. Nobody will defend lag as a difficulty option. No one's gonna be like, yeah, bro, I can play at 4K, 60, 120 FPS, but yeah, you've never really beaten Dark Souls unless you've played at 15 FPS. No, you have, because at the end of the day, at the time the game was released, it was actually 30 FPS. 30 FPS was the cap they were working with. However, you can push it to 60 FPS with the DS Fix. You can push it even higher, probably. I don't know how. Just change it, but it'd probably break something to do with the It breaks something to do with the mechanics of the physics engine, right? So now you're talking about another mechanic of the game, the physics engine. If the physics engine can't handle 75 frames per second, but the game is meant to be played, the game was designed with 75 frames per second, and it actually doesn't output it like that, the game is mechanically flawed. And that part of the game, the technical aspect of the game, is bad. Bloodborne plays at 30 FPS, right? People would wish it would play at 60 because that's kind of like the fluid. That's like the snap point. That's like the increment where the human eye sees fluid movement. Anything under 60 FPS, it looks choppy. I don't know how high 120, how smooth 120 would look. It might start to look too weird. I'm not sure. I don't know. I've never played at 120 frames or whatever the standard is now, or whatever the the limit is now. But if Bloodborne was designed to run at 60 with really fast action, with hitting enemies quickly, with input buffering for attacks and those kinds of things, so you get in and out of battles really quickly. But the game runs mechanically on hardware at what did I say it was meant to run at 30, but it runs at 25, it runs at 23, it runs at 22. Excuse me. Mechanically speaking, technically speaking, the interplay between me pressing R1 now and the game waiting zero point 0.2 of a millisecond, zero point 0.3 of a millisecond, and not factoring that into its design, it's a bad game. That's a game with poor craftsmanship. If people don't want to say, "Oh, the game is bad," "Oh, because that feature's busted, you think the whole game is bad." Well, I like the lore, I like the characters, so maybe the combat's not that important. If you don't want to say the game is bad, right, because it's too reductive, when I say the game is bad, I'm expressing my feelings that for whatever reason, I'm not invested in the game in the way that I thought I would be, and the way the game should have invested me. The DS2, that's because technically and mechanically speaking, it has a number of shortcomings, a number of gaps in what it sets out to do, what it's supposed to do, defined by its genre, defined by its creator's intentions, and then compared that to what it actually does, what the actual experiences of playing Dark Souls 2. Because if the game's meant to run at 60, and no matter what kind of graphics card you have, it doesn't run at 60, enough to drag you out of the action, enough to disengage and disconnect you from the world that you're meant to be immersed in. Remember, Dark Souls is about immersion. You're meant to feel, you're meant to connect as if you're the character and their loss is your loss. That's the difficulty coming into it. That's why when Dark Souls is hard and you win, it feels euphoric because it feels like you've overcome a challenge. But if a challenge is here is 10 enemies in a room designed to kill you, and they do kill you, then you could also argue, well, the game developers intended for you to die there. If they did, then that's where the game should end. That's where I should not be able to, through spamming life gems, through turtling up in armor, through investing in ADP, through quitting in, quitting out, get through it, then that's where the game should end. And on a level, I feel like Dark Souls 2 leans into the difficulty of the Dark Souls genre, the Souls genre, and becomes about how can we kill the player? And if that's what they're going for, right? How many ways can we kill the player? If that's what they're going for, then the game should end when I can't survive. When that room or that level they've designed to kill me should be impossible to pass. But if it isn't, if I'm actually meant to overcome that challenge, then they're taking liberties with the mechanics of the game. They're taking liberties with um, the genre of the game. Because I don't feel a Dark Souls game should be about how can we kill the player. On the other hand, I think Dark Souls should be about how can we make the player feel victorious or triumphant, right? Um, the sun is brightest just before or just after the dark, whatever the quote is. Contrast, white looks bright with a black background. You've got to have the peaks and the troughs. And that's Dark Souls. Dark Souls is um going, oh fuck, I can't believe I'm gonna go through Blighttown. I hate Blighttown. I really don't like Blighttown. Me personally, it's one of my least favorite areas because I've got to take it really, really slow because I don't like to die. I don't like to lose my souls, and it makes me stressed. But when I beat Blighttown and I never have to go back to it, I feel like I did it, and I did it to my standards perfectly. Didn't lose souls. I might have died, but I killed Quelaag. I rung the bells. I got all the items. I killed every enemy. I killed every enemy. I didn't cheese anything. I didn't glitch anything. I met the game on its own terms, and I bet that challenge. Cool. Good. Great. Whereas me personally, not to say that this is how everybody else feels, but me personally, when I play Dark Souls 2 and I get over a tough part, I think, fuck's sake, thank God that's over. I think not in a positive way of I am now being given something good. For Dark Souls 2, it's like something bad is being taken away, right? Like you can positively reinforce someone by giving them food if they do good things, or you can negatively reinforce someone by taking away something bad from them. Yeah? Like if you stick a knife into some dude and then he does something that you want, you pull it out, you haven't given him something good, you've taken away something bad. If you Yeah, carrot and a stick type of thing. If you hit him with a stick, if you keep hitting him with a stick until he does what you want him to do, and then you stop, you're taking away something bad. But if you give him a carrot when he does what you want to do, you're giving him something good. Dark Souls is giving something good to players. Dark Souls 2 is taking away something bad from players, in my opinion, when they go over its challenges. I think that's literally maybe everything I can possibly say about it. But I'm keen to hear what anybody else thinks. Should we get back to let's do Dark Souls 2?